Hello everyone, and welcome to my tomb. You know, as a lich with plans of world domination, I can sometimes grow bored of my day-to-day. In order to rectify that, I have delved into a new world of horror, the world of RPG horror stories. For today, we will be looking at the horror of bad GMs, and those that could be better. Today we will begin by looking at a GM who realizes that they were the horror story, a World of Darkness game that gets cancelled in lieu of another one, and a horror story that is stopped before it even begins. Now sit down and listen to my tales. Story 1. How I Became the Problem GM by Reddit user Connor Clash Nord. Hop on and read my story about how I started and how things evolved during my time running games. Before starting everything, I'm making this post after one I did where I ranted about one of my players in a really harsh way. That post revealed that I was the problem player and not my player after all, and I admitted no doubts. I felt bad, wanted to get approval from people on the internet by throwing crap at someone that I call a friend. He isn't a bad player, and the problems I had were a me problem instead of him. I got what I deserved on that post, and I probably want to get more destroyed by you all because of this. This whole story really spans in a 2-year game of Mutant Year Zero. This is important to know. The game has something of a harsh setting, where survival is the central point of it all. So, I wanted to reflect that in game, but I didn't do it in the best way. By adding constant combat, like one encounter per session, I ended up making an extremely hostile world that wasn't fun for them. Another things were stuff that forced the PCs into unable to do anything moments, which were basically cutscenes, only to force something to happen. Sometimes not even allowing for others to do anything before it happened. This means things like torture, which, even after talking to my group about it, it still feels wrong because it takes away player agency. It makes them feel not in their control to do anything about it at all. The forced combat didn't help at all because it made my players only create combat-focused characters, and with me barely using the social mechanics that were written in the game, this means that making a social character was useless. This is something that eventually got carried in other games I had run during or after the main MYZ game. Something I didn't put in the original post was that my group actually stayed in the tone we set during session 0. This never changed at all. They are awesome, and I forgot about that. But what did make me a bad GM was me expecting something from others, always trying to get one step ahead of them, but then not feeling happy when, lo and behold, people did stuff they wanted to do using their free will. They wanted to have fun, and I wanted to have a fun in another completely different way, instead of just working alongside them. I wanted to see them pass through harsh moments, get injured, survive, but they totally never wanted that. They wanted dramatic moments with NPCs and PC interactions in safe places, where they could share interesting moments. No stupid long combats that I constantly added for the sake of adding those. I totally think that they remember the following things. 1. Watching an aurora in the middle of the night, just relaxing after a long time of problems, only a couple being happy. 2. Moments of just funny things, like a lot of the most skilled warriors, getting totally driven away by the river they were in the need to cross. And with all the warriors and hunters being cats, it was more funny in a way. 3. The introduction of important NPCs to the story that became followers to the party and became complete friends with them, even developing complete bonds. Just talking in the night alongside a campfire. 2 PCs sharing their lives before joining the group, and eventually doing a complete romantic relationship in a really natural way. 5. Taking time to relax in a cabin on the top of a mountain after having a extremely hard time climbing it. Chimney lidded and a couch. 3 PCs just taking their time. This before having the need to go into the most dangerous places in the entire game, where one mistake could mean death. It was a moment of calm before the storm, and that made it memorable. I now see that those were the best moments of the campaign. Not hard combats, punishing rules from the game that I wanted to force because they were raw, or killing NPCs that I eventually retconned because of me being an idiot because of killing something they liked having in the story. This was something I wanted to push against them instead of trying to make things fun for everyone. I even felt agitated and pissed off about the characters getting extremely OP and me being unable to win against them in anything, which made me want to create extremely invincible enemies just to beat them, which was me literally doing the same thing, but to the extreme point of not making things fun. OP PCs are fun in their own way because the players have agency to do it. Agency to decide when to do what they can to make things easier for themselves, and with my players not being murder hobos made it feel better because they weren't using their cool powers just for shits and giggles. They used them when it was necessary to do it, but when you use those same things on an enemy, making them unable to even take any damage because I had like 40 points I could spend freely when they were stuck with 10, then that's where the problem appears. So, could I say I learned from all this? I do think that I'm trying to become a better GM and person with each day. I have lots of problems as a GM, hell, even probably as a player. There were other games I run where same problems were clear as day too, but I think this whole post already tells me all the important problems that I'm finally seeing and that I need to change for the better. Not only for me, but for my players, which I really like having, my friends, and my favorite group. Thanks for reading till the end, and I do think that I deserve to be treated with downvotes or comments from people. I wanted to release this as the real story instead of me trying to be the good one. You know what, OP? Good on you for recognizing your faults here. It's always hard to run a new game that you're not completely familiar with and to try to balance things in the way that you're used to. It's even harder to try to make the game challenging in a way that you're also used to. While you don't mention what other games you've run before this or what other systems you've run, it is definitely a different kind of game to run Mutant Year Zero than it is to run D&D. Similarly, there are many other games of different styles that are run differently. Trying to run a game like it's D&D doesn't really work exactly. You see, as it definitely can be a growing pain to run a new game that is designed with a different playstyle than what you're used to, and to avoid not running it the same way you are used to because it's designed differently. But it is good on you for you to realize that you were the problem in this case and that you want to do better. And honestly, again, you didn't really mention any previous games you've run. You could be on the newer side of running games, of GMing, DMing, whatever you want to call it. It is always a growing process. As someone that's been running games for many years now, it definitely is a growing process. Even if you feel that you're used to running games, you can still learn from running games more and more. And so don't always fret and think about the past as if you always made mistakes and you're a bad GM. Take those mistakes that you made and use those to avoid mistakes in the future. Because that's really all it is. Running games, similar to living life, is all about improving yourself and never staying where you are in one place. But while you weren't the best GM here, you did learn. Now let's look at a different GM who abandons their World of Darkness server to completely ghost all the players. 5e World of Darkness Living World tanked after admin announces they are running a sister server and begins promoting it. By Reddit user Siridar Silverstar. I've always wanted to play Werewolf and was surprised when a posting for a new server for 5e was gaining traction. I decided to take a look and it was advertised as a newly formed one and had a fair number of players. I quickly created a character and attempted to gather up our few Garou players to start role-playing to get something off the ground. Admin makes 2 posts as one of the fellow werewolves and goes dark. When questioned, admin states they are working on recruiting 2 new players and want to wait till they make a decision. A few days pass and admin posts up a sister World of Darkness server for everyone to look at as it's an older edition. I reach out to find out if they are about to close the 5e server as they are promoting another server, they admin. I'm assured no, it just has more storytellers that prefer the older edition, while this admin will focus on the 5e version. 2 days later, the admin posts the 5e server is closing due to an illness, and they will aid anyone who wants to go to the sister server in recreating their character. I pop over and it's very sparse in material, and one of the storytellers mentions they just started it and it just beginning to run. They ask me to make a character. I'm polite and state I want to stick around and see if it takes off as to not repeat the last server's status. A few days later, it just disappears with no record of it existing on the other server's advertising sites. Oh boy. Okay, so as someone who's played Vampire the Masquerade, which is a World of Darkness game, and a few others such as Mage and Scion, I'm pretty well versed, I think, in playing the different World of Darkness games. They all take place in the same universe and they are all connected, but there's kind of like the MCU in that you can kind of just focus on one particular aspect of it and just follow that to a degree, and really just only be aware of the other aspects. So for example, you can be a vampire and only play vampire and just be aware that there are mages in this world, there are werewolves, there are mummies, there are demons, and all this stuff. But one thing about World of Darkness, while it is such a really cool setting and I suggest you guys should check it out, it is very divisive in general, like the community itself. You see, World of Darkness has been around since the 90s, and it has had so many editions. For example, even Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition isn't actually the 5th edition. They had a whole different type of game called Vampire the Requiem, which was for the most part very similar outside of some lore things and some minor mechanic things. But if you were to go to any forum like the World of Darkness subreddit and say you like one edition, you will get so many people saying, oh, this edition sucks, you should play this edition, or this edition is the best. And someone else will say, oh no, that edition sucks. And it's just a whole bunch of infighting. It's similar to the Final Fantasy community. As someone that's a Final Fantasy fan, is that like everybody has their own personal favorite Final Fantasy, but like as soon as somebody mentions it, it just starts a war regardless of what it is. Even if people can generally agree that it's a good game, it will still start a war regardless. Now, onto the real problem here is that the admins just were not communicating at all, stating that we're going to run this campaign or run this server as this system, and then as soon as like other GMs come and say, oh, we want to play a older edition, or even, well, not newer edition in this case, we want to play a older edition, they're like, okay, yeah, we'll make another server we can play the older edition, and then just completely ignore the newer edition server is just messed up. If you were going to open up 2 different servers of the same game, essentially, with just different editions, why not just keep them both running and maybe like cordon off the GMs to which system they prefer running? And if, for example, most GMs prefer running the older edition, maybe you might just want to let people know. You might just want to rip that Band-Aid off and just let people know, hey, there aren't enough GMs here, so we can't really run this server, but if you're interested in playing the older edition, we can teach you how to play that over on this other server. That would just make things easier for everyone, right? Now, I'm sorry you have to deal with that, OP, and it really sucks. And I hope you're able to find at least a server that you really enjoy. So good luck with that, and I hope you can find a better server in the future. So coming from a story about a GM themselves who realized that they were a problem, going to a horror story that didn't really happen, let's turn our eyes to the next RPG horror story in which the story actually gets stopped beforehand. This story is titled Stopping a Horror Story Dead in Its Tracks by Reddit user Thanatos Cal. This took place during COVID. I didn't have a lot of games going, and I saw a few people talking TTRPGs on a big Discord server, unrelated to RPGs. Immediately, I went to give some good vibes and advice from a veteran, not that motivated to play though. It became clear they had trouble organizing, so I took the lead on that. But great news, one of them was an inspiring DM with 2 sessions of experience. I encouraged her to go on, gave a few notes on adventure building, and agreed to be a player. The rest of the team had a full newcomer and someone with 2 sessions as a player. New people to the hobby, and I could do my best to help while not taking the lead. I was tired and depressed at the time. I proposed some dates, and we agree on a first session for character creation and an introductory gameplay. Then the day came. We had agreed on playing a Lord of the Ring themed game, but not talk system yet. This was to be covered in session 0. So now. And that's when I realized DM had brought an old 80s player's handbook of a LOTR game and expected us to create characters through her reading us the book over Discord. That looked horrendous. Not wanting to cancel her idea completely, I quickly searched and found some, legal obviously, PDFs to share and make creation easier. But as the first hours rolled by, the end result was already clear. The energy was dying and the game was going nowhere. The DM half understood the rules of the game, the newcomers weren't picking up anything, and even I had some trouble understanding equipment. Obviously, there would be no time to play after all that, and motivation for another session was going to be hard to find. So I just told them to scrap it. Creating full characters is going to take us another 2 hours, and after that, we'll be tripping over the rules constantly. I got a basic system, 6 characteristics, simple dice, basic rules. We picked that, and in 30 minutes, we're all playing. What do you say? After a brief talk, they agreed, and the new players seemed relieved. Indeed, after 30 minutes, the game was going, and DM could start telling her story. She did quite well for a beginner. The game ran 3 sessions after that, and died because lockdown ended, but I kept playing with one of the players. It took me a while to speak up, even though I foresaw the disaster the moment DM named the game, because I didn't want to overstep on her authority when it's already hard to find some confidence. I remembered fondly of screwing around in high school with far too complicated games that my friends and I did not understand. But I think the easier system ended up helping the game massively. We barely needed to talk the rules after that, and it was all about the story. TLDR. New DM wanted to start a game with an old complicated RPG. Game almost dies at character creation, and I intervened to change system on the fly and play. Alright, this is definitely deserving of a lighthearted tag. Good on you, Thanatos Cow, OP, whatever you want to call yourself here. You see, this is the issue I find with a lot of people that are very enthusiastic. While I very much appreciate the enthusiasm, I do think that some people really want to leap in with both feet into RPGs, especially if they're running the RPG in question and they don't know exactly how to really schedule things or how to explain the rules or get the rules to the players in a timely manner. And it can definitely cause some issues when players aren't fully understanding of how the game works. Of course, some systems are much easier to actually go through and explain how they work and run, but it's definitely a learned skill on how to introduce a new game to people. Now, even though OP isn't exactly the GM in this case, they did a great job in introducing a simpler system. And honestly, I think this is something that really benefits certain games that are just very simple, very, very bare bones. Like I know Universal D6 is a good example where it's just, you just roll a D6 to see what happens, where 6 is yes and, 5 is yes, 4 is yes but, 3 is no but, 2 is no, and then 1 is no and, where essentially you can kind of see where like, oh, if I roll the higher you roll, the better things get. Where you can be like, yes, you do this and something else good happens. Or no, you do this, but something good happens. Or no, you do that and then something really bad happens. It's a very simplified system, and I'm not sure how many people would be on board with something that simple, because everyone has different tastes in how complicated they want their games to be. But a game like that is definitely something you can very easily pick up and play, especially for new players. And it's something I feel like more players should try to play those games. And especially since they lean more on the narrative aspect of things. New players not really understanding the concept of role-playing just yet most of the time. It's probably a great way to really get them into the role-playing mindset, as they just know their character. They're not thinking so much of like their stats or anything like that. They're just thinking like, oh, this is what my character is, and Even if they haven't made up a backstory, they don't need to. They can definitely go and just be the character and not worry so much about the stats or the feats or what they can do on their character sheet. So really great job there, OP. And so, with the tales told and the bells tolled, I must return to my slumber, but be back soon, as I will relay to you more RPG horror stories. Goodbye, everyone.